I, Abubakarr Saidy-Khan.
I, Abubakarr Saidy-Khan.
Do swear that.
Do swear that.
I will speak the truth.
I will speak the truth.
The whole truth.
The whole truth.
And nothing but the truth.
Nothing but the truth.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Saidy-Khan. Welcome to the Commission.
Thank you very much, Counsel.
As you already know, my name is Horeja Balagay. We have met a couple of times. I will be asking you questions today on behalf of the commissioners. We will be looking at the information that you provided us regarding harassment and intimidation, arrest and detention of journalists. But before I tell you exactly what we will focus on, I would like to draw your attention to a few rules that we have here in the Commission. I'm being told to project my voice into the mic, so that is part of what I want to explain to you. Please ensure that you speak directly into the mic, as I'm doing right now. Also speak slowly, because there is interpretation into local languages in the hearing room. Additionally, allow a few seconds at the end of my speech before you start responding, so that we can avoid overlapping speech and make it easier for the interpreters to interpret your testimony as well as my questions. Is that clear?
Very well.
If at any point you do not understand my question, please ask me to repeat it. If it is not very clear and you would like me to explain it further, feel free to ask me to clarify, and I will do so. So for today's session, we will focus on initially your biographical information, as well as your education and professional background. Then we will generally address from your perspective as a journalist where you worked, what kinds of experience you had in terms of the climate under the previous regime, the Jammeh regime. We will then focus on 4 incidents of human rights violations and abuses against journalists, including yourself, and that's mainly between 2009 and 2012. You already know what those incidents are, so I will wait until the natural flow of your testimony. So that's what we will address today. Are you ready to proceed?
Yes.
Can you please state your full name for the record?
My name is Abubakarr Saidy-Khan.
Can you tell us when and where you were born, Mr. Saidy-Khan?
I was born in Brikama, Kembujay, and this was in 1983.
Do you remember the date?
It was on the 25th of December, 1983.
Can you draw the mic closer to you?
Yes. It's all right.
Yes, I think that's fine. Yes. Can you tell us a bit about your educational background? When and where did you go to school?
Yes, I started my educational background in Brikama Community Center and then was enrolled at Talinding Primary School in Serekunda.
What year was that?
That was from 1991 to 96. Then later my father took me to the provinces in Kiang Dumbuto. So I was traveling from Dumbuto to Kiang Kuinala, where I did my junior schooling for the first time. That's from 97 to 99. Mm-hmm. So 99 I came back to Kombo, and I was enrolled at a private school called the Roskali International. But that year I didn't sit to the grade 9 examination, so I had to go for another year. So I was in Brikama Upper Basic School, commonly known as Alpha-Khan. So from Alpha-Khan, that was in 1999, and then 2000, 2001, I had a break. So in 2002, I was at Newsworth High School. From 2002 to 2005, I completed Newsworth High School. So from Newsworth, I came to West African Insurance Institute, where I read diploma in law.
What did you do after that?
After that, the opportunity that I had was going to exile, and I was enrolled at British Council. There is an institution in Senegal where I went to enroll, and I was reading English language.
Sorry, just to be clear, After you finished Nusrat High School in 2005,
Yeah.
you enrolled in the West African, what was the name again?
No, West African West African Insurance Institute. That's
Insurance
why.
Institute.
Yeah.
When did you complete your studies there?
There, that was in 2012.
Okay.
Yeah, that was in 2012. Yeah.
So I'd like to take you back to when you finished at Nusrat High School in 2005.
Exactly.
Did you begin working after that?
2005, I start with the Fourier newspaper after my graduation from high school.
So you began working at Fourier newspaper in 2005. What was your role at the newspaper?
I was a distributor, newspaper distributor. I started as a newspaper distributor, but before that, there was a problem of acquiring a job in the Gambia in those days, and I was very young. So I went to Mr. Sala, the honorable member for Serekunda, Halifa Sala, and explained my problem to him. He was giving some counseling to people, not only me. Then he advised me to come to Fourier and then, start, doing some freelance work. But in those days, I could not have the capacity to be writing articles and stuff like that, because it wonders me, how do people write articles? Because I was fresh from school. So I started from distributing papers till exactly.
So as a newspaper distributor at Fourier, can you tell us which areas you worked in? Like, where were you distributing papers to?
Yeah, I was distributing from Churchillstown to BB. Yeah, those are the areas that, and then traffic light towards Senegambia.
So Churchillstown to BB in Kololi,
Yeah.
and then traffic light, meaning Caraba Avenue.
Those were the areas that I was distributing.
Okay. Just allow a few seconds after I speak so that we don't have overlapping speech.
Yeah.
Where were the offices of Fourier located at that time in 2005 when you joined?
It was in Churchillstown.
So you told us you began as a newspaper distributor. Did you eventually start writing stories for Fourier?
I eventually started writing articles for Fourier in 2009.
And how long did you spend at Fourier? How long were you working there between 2005 and?
Yeah, it's from 2005 to 2011. Yes.
So I want to ask you a few questions about the Fourier newspaper itself.
Yeah.
Between 2005 and 2011, when you worked there, can you tell us who the managing editor was?
Yes, the managing editor was Samuel Ose Sarr. That's the real name.
And what about the editorial? Was there an editorial board?
Yes.
Who were the members of the editorial board?
Yes, I believe it's Halifa Sallah, Honorable Halifa Sallah, member for Serekunda, and Sidia Jata, member for Woolly West, and Sam Sarr, the current managing editor.
So I want to focus a bit more about what it was like for you working as a journalist for Fourier newspaper between 2005 and 2011 under the Yahya Jammeh regime. Can you tell us what experiences you had just operating as a journalist generally? What was the climate?
Yeah, the climate was not good at all, because I came into the field when people like Daida Hydra were already killed, and Chief Mane disappeared. So I started as a young reporter, and the climate in those days is that the president of the country, Yahya Jammeh, was not very lenient with professionals like journalists. So even some of the security officials, the way they view journalists, especially those working with the Fourier newspaper, was very bad. Fourier was a very critical paper to the government. They were always critical to the government when it comes to issues of human rights, issues of freedom of expression, issues of environment, or any other thing. They also offer advices to the government by giving them recommendations. Their editorial policy was also straight. Yes.
Just slow down a little bit,
okay,
so that everyone can hear clearly what you're saying. Please continue.
Yes. So that was the climate that I made at Fourier. So I had to be careful in the way and manner in which I produce my articles, the legal implications and stuff like that, because I always hear security officials but the way they speak against some journalists, especially those working with the Foreign newspaper. So the climate, in short, was not conducive at all.
Well, let's unpack some of what you've just said. You talked about how security officials would talk about journalists. Can you give us some examples of some of the things that they would say or how they would treat journalists from Foria, for instance?
Exactly. In one of the instances, I was invited at the police headquarters in Banjul when the former police chief of the former police inspector general of police, Esa Baji, had to attack me in a press conference that we, the Foria journalists, write some articles and then we refuse to verify them. And if care is not taken, some of us will be taken to court and will be imprisoned. So when I came, I reported the matter to my managing editor, and all that he has to say, you don't have to mind some of those threats that are coming from the police officers. Just do your work as the way it should be.
So at that press conference, there were journalists from other newspapers,
Yes,
is that correct?
Absolutely.
But the Foria was singled out from
Yes.
what you recall?
Yes, that was Esa Baji just looked at me and then threw those words at me.
How did you feel when you heard those words?
I felt bad.
Allow a few seconds between
Exactly.
our speech.
Exactly.
How did you feel when you heard those threats from IGP at the time, Esa Baji?
I felt bad. I feel bad. I was threatened also because he was the police chief at the time.
And so when you returned and conveyed that information to your managing editor, Mr. Samsar, and other members at the Foria, tell us what was the reaction in detail.
Yeah, you know, Sam is, I presume he's a legal-minded person, so he had to advise me and ask me not to worry about what Esa Baji said, because if I write articles before they are published, they are properly checked. We have different editors at Foria that used to check into articles before they are published. So if he should threaten me, and because of I'm working at Foria, I think that has to do with the editorial policy of Foria. You know, the way they view things. You know, people have different way of analyzing things. So Sam had to advise me just to calm and then proceed with my work, because that was my role. I have to be giving out to the public. So the advice was very good. I was convinced.
You mentioned that you mentioned the editorial policy of Foria. Can you explain in detail what you mean by that? What was the editorial policy in general?
Yeah, Foria was very critical when it comes to analyzing issues. And the day-to-day matters, that was, you know, in the days of Jame, things were so stressed when it comes to Foria. So Foria was very direct. Those that write the editorials were very direct. They can write open letters to the president. They can write recommendations to the president and name the president. You see what I mean? So the editorial was coming from people who are very educated. So I see this was not going down well with the present government at the time. So this is why people like us were singled out in the profession as opposition journalists in those days. And
why do you believe you were singled out as opposition journalists? What do you mean by that?
Yes. The editorial board, members of the editorial board are very outspoken people at Foria. You know, I presume they are very legally minded also, and they understand issues, and they can also help the public to understand the current, the day-to-day affairs of happenings, what is happening in the country at the time. In fact, they understand issues more than the former regime. So these were some of the reasons. That's why people see Foria as an opposition paper in those days.
Were any members of the editorial board linked to any opposition parties, as far as you know?
Yeah, I think all of them are in one party, People's Democratic Organization for Socialism, that's PDOIS. Yes, this was the thinking that people have. So if you are working at Foria, obviously you must be working, or you must be part of the political party that is existing there.
So just to get a better understanding of the situation of Foria at the time and Foria journalists, you told us about the behavior of the IGP at the time towards you and your paper. You've also told us that members of the editorial board were also members of an opposition party. Can you tell us what impact that had in relation to your activities with the government, like your ability to cover the government's events or access to public officials to ask them questions?
Yes, what they fail to understand that not everybody who was working at Foria is affiliated to the political party. People were working there as freelance journalists, others were there as staff journalists, but our political ideology might be different. So, but the public eye on us was that if you are working at Foria, obviously you must be part of the political party PDOIS. So this is why I stated initially that the IGP Esabaji, when he attacked me at the police headquarters, throwing words at me, the belief was that he thinks that I am part of that political party. That's why he said, "You Foria journalist." So that was the intimidation coming out, but it has to do with their mindset.
What about access to cover government events? Was Foria given access to cover government events, for instance?
It was very minimal. Invitations to Foria to cover government events was not encouraging at all in those days. They were sidelined by the government completely. In my time, yeah, it was very hard for me to go to government programs and then cover it. All the coverages that were coming from the government were given to the Daily Observer or the GRTS, state media, were the one who had the opportunity to be going to State House and be covering events.
So from what you've said, you felt that Foria was sidelined and you didn't have access to information in some instances to do your job. Is that correct?
Yeah, but even some of the private medias, you have so many private media that were in the country. Daily Observer was operating, GRTS was operating. But what I'm trying to say is that events that has to do with the state, most of the time, they consider the state media to cover it than the private media. So you have the Point newspaper, the Voice newspaper were all there, but we were not given this opportunity to be covering events that has to do with the state at the time.
We've already heard testimony from the Secretary General of the GPU regarding some of the arrests and detention of members of Foria. For instance, Mr. Sekou Cisse in 2008, Mr. Fabakary Cisse in 2007, and Mr. Yaya Damfa in 2007 as well. So I would like to focus more on events that you know directly, firsthand. Can you tell us about the incident that occurred in 2009 regarding the arrest of one of the members of your editorial board?
Yeah, in 2009, it was on the 15th of June 2009, on Monday, around 6 o'clock. I was at my office at Foria after writing my articles already, and then decided to brew a tire with one of my senior editors, who is now the member for Wuli East, Suwaibu Ture, National Assembly member for Wuli East. So while we were sitting down, I saw this man who came from the street, but he was completely drunk, fair in complexion. He came, he was asking for Samsar, but Sam had already left the office and then have gone to his house because Sam was living just next to his house. There was just a fence in between the office and the house. So Sam left, he was in the house, lying down. So the guy came and asked me, I was brewing that tire. So I asked him, who are you? But he never explained. So he went out. So when he went out, Suwaibu Ture told me, who is this guy? He said, I don't know him, but he's asking for Samsar. So later, I saw two plainclothes officers who came in and said they are asking for Samsar. So that was the time that we were all alerted, and then said to ourselves, look, something is going on. So the man who was drunk was never seen again. He disappeared. So the two plainclothes officers went into the house and knocked the door and then called the name of Samsar. Sam came out and they started speaking with Sam because they were the three in number standing. So, but I saw Sam telling them that he is somehow sick, was asking them some questions. I'm not sure what Sam was really telling them, but I saw them. They came out from the compound and they were moving towards the vehicle. There was a vehicle that was standing outside. It's a small one.
From where you were at that time, could you clearly observe what was happening?
Can you repeat that again?
From where you were
Yeah.
at the time, could you clearly observe what
Yeah,
was happening?
Exactly. It was an open space. So I was standing viewing directly.
The two plainclothes police officers, did
No.
they identify themselves when they arrived?
They identified themselves to Samsar, but
Not to you.
not to me, yes. Yes. So
Conti-
they are not police officers. They are from the National Intelligence Agency, the then National Intelligence Agency. And one of the names of the plainclothes officer was Mr. Tamba. I don't know the first name, but it's Mr. Tamba. He is somehow fit. You know, when I see him, I can recognize him.
How did you come to know his name?
Yeah, during our interrogation at the NIA, I came to know his name.
Okay, so continue telling us. You were
Yes.
standing there while
Yes.
the two officers were speaking to Mr. Samsar. You said there were officers from the National Intelligence Agency.
Yes.
Tell us what happened.
Then they were about to arrest him. He was already arrested. And then while he was being arrested, so I was with my camera. As a judicial correspondent at the time, I was always at the court. So I said to myself, look, I have to cover this whole arrest because these people are taking Sam. I don't know where are they going to take him, because similar incidents occurred to Keith Mane. He disappeared, nobody sees him. So I start sending photos, shooting them. I have taken photos. So when they could have not noticed when I was taking my photos, but because of the flash of my camera was on, so when I flashed, they saw the flash and they just came on me and asked me as to why I should take those photos. I said, you are arresting my editor, my managing editor. So I am a journalist working for this paper, a freelance journalist. I want to document the arrest and then write the story so that it can be published tomorrow. So Mr. Tamba just grabbed my camera and then seized it and then just hold on to my side and asked me to get into the car. So I was the first person to get into the car, and then Sam followed. We were 4 in number, sitting behind. That's how we left.
So at that point in time, you were arrested for documenting
Yes.
the arrest of your editor.
Yes.
Do you know why, at that point in time, did you know why your editor was being arrested?
Yeah, the reason, it was in relation to an interview conducted by the late Keba Diba of GRTS with the former president Yahya Jammeh. In this interview, Keba Diba asked the former president as to the allegation or the accusation that people used to say that who killed Daida Hydra, that he was the one who killed Daida Hydra, or he should have had some knowledge about the killing of a veteran journalist called Daida Hydra. So the president, in his response, he was, you can see it from his face that he was angry with the question and said to Keba, look, if those people, all those people who are asking about the death or the circumstances surrounding the death of Daida, I'm sorry to say this, but they should go to Daida Hydra in the grave and ask him as to who killed him. That's what he said. So when he said that, the former president of the Gambia Press Union, by the time was in Mali. I think she was on international appointment, Data Fasose, wrote a very lengthy article. I don't know whether it's an opinion piece, but it was an article in response to what the president said.
A press statement?
Yes, it was a press statement. That, but what they was trying to explain there is that, to my understanding, was that the president spoke ill of a death, and that's not the way a leader should speak like that. So they was trying to advise and to tell him to take his time, that, you know, investigations are ongoing. So whatever happens, we will know whether the government was responsible for the killing of Daida or not. So this article was sent to Forea. I did not know when the article was sent to Forea, because I'm not in connection with the whole episode. But the article was published on Forea newspaper on Friday, you see, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, on the 15th of June, the Point newspaper published the same article. So when the Point published the same article, Pap Sen, Ibrahim Sawane were arrested. Sarate Jabi Diba were all arrested. Emil Toure was also arrested. Pamodu Fall was also arrested in connection to that article. So, to my understanding, Sam published the article on Friday and he was never arrested. So the NIA officers, that 15th of June, 2009, around 6, they were there at Fouria's office to arrest Sam. So in the process, I was also taken.
And we have heard a little bit about this incident, which became known as the arrest of 7 journalists, and later became 6. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
So you were put at the back of the vehicle, you, Mr. Samsar, and the 2 NIA officers.
Definitely.
And a driver was taking you somewhere. Where were you taken to?
We went to the NIA the then NIA headquarters. Is now the SIS.
Can you tell us where it's located?
It's in Banjul, just next to Marina Parade, just opposite the High Court of the Gambia, the Supreme Court of the Gambia.
During your journey from Fouria's office in Churchillstown to the NIA headquarters in Banjul, did any conversation take place? Did they provide you with any information as to why you're both being arrested from their perspective?
We were all quiet throughout. From Fouria, Churchillstown, up to Banjul, we were all quiet. Yes, I was with my recorder, but I had to even hide my recorder because I knew at the time, if they see the recorder, they would have seized the recorder from me too. Was trying to record some of the things that they would say in the vehicle, but we were all silent. They were all frowned.
Can you tell us what happened upon arrival at the NIA headquarters?
Yes, upon arrival, we were parked. Me and Sam met Pamoudou Fall, Emile Touré, and others who were initially arrested there. So we were all packed in one hall, and they gave us some mattresses. There were some checkings in and out there, taking our names and stuff like that, our profession, where you work, details. So the following day, they came to ask us to give statements, you see.
So still focusing on that first day, you were arrested around after 6 p.m.
Yes.
When you arrived there, did they provide you with any other information as to what you were doing there or what you could expect?
Yeah, they were quiet completely till the next day.
Were you provided with any food that evening?
Yes, to be honest, but later food was coming from outside.
What kind of food were you provided?
Yeah, this is family food. It's benachin, bread.
I'm referring to the first night when you arrived at the NIA headquarters.
I ate bread.
They provided you with bread?
Yes, I ate bread, yeah.
You told us that you were taken to a room and they provided you with mattresses.
Yeah.
Do you recall where that room was located within the NIA premises?
Exactly. The room is just at the entrance. Now there are some refurbishments that are done there, but I can still recognize the place.
Is it in the main building or in another building?
No, it is just when you are entering. Yes, you can have it on your right-hand side. That's where we were giving mattresses to sleep. It's just like a hall.
So you said nothing happened that night. They were coming in and out, but it's the next day that some activity took place. Exactly. Tell us about that next day.
Yeah, Alaji Mor Diop was a NIA officer at the time. In the morning he came and he started to ask us to inform us about giving statements. So on my side, when he asked me to give a statement, I said, I don't even know what I'm going to give because my only role was to document the arrest of my editor. So what else can I explain? And as a journalist, I have the right to document an event and report it. Then he said, in Wolof Sumaraga, this place is not a ghetto, you have to speak. Then he emphasized, he thought that I was a ghetto youth. Then he had to emphasize that to me, that this place is not a ghetto, it's not a camp where boys used to camp and then joke. This place is NIA, you have to accept what we are telling you. So there I said, I reserve my statement for posterity. That's all that I have written. So when he asked Sam, we were all in a hall. A big table was there. In fact, he came and picked the table and he was having a pistol, was showing us the pistol, in fact, at least to intimidate us to give a statement. But I was very young at the time, so Sam refused to give a statement, to be honest. Sam refused to give a statement. Emil refused to give a statement. But all the others the rest gave a statement.
So let me just make sure the record is clear. You
Yeah.
gave us some names. I'll repeat them and let me know if they're correct. You mentioned Pap Sen.
Yeah.
You mentioned Ibrahima Sawane. You mentioned Pa Mudufal. You mentioned Emil Toure. You mentioned Sarata Jabi Diba. And yourself.
And myself. I was the 5th accused person.
And of course, Samsal.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay. So the rest gave statements.
Yeah, the rest gave statements, but me, Emil Toure, and Samsar did not give a statement. So, but they did everything for us to give statement, but we refused to give statement.
Can you tell us what happened after that?
So from there, that was on the 16th of June, 2012. So 17th, we spent the night. On Thursday, Thursday, we were taken to Carnegie Magistrate Court.
So from Monday to Wednesday,
Yeah.
During those 3 days, were you given access to lawyers at that point?
No, no access to any lawyer. Even to call our families and then talk to them was a problem. But our family members, each of our family members were coming. In fact, there was a point in time they had to seize our food. I had to, know that from one of the officers there that our food was there, but they refused to give us the food.
During those 3 days, did they give you any information as to why you were there? I know you told us why you believe you were there, but did they give you any information during those 3 days as to why exactly you were there?
I was not giving any information as to why I was there. Sometimes they will deal with Samsar in private, because there was a point in time that Sam has to be taken to another room. You see what I mean? So me, Pap Sen, and others were at the same. I don't know why are they interacting with Sam like that. So, but I was never informed as to why I was there. I personally.
You mentioned one person, Mr. Alaji Moore Job.
Yeah.
During that time, did you recognize any other NIA officers?
Many of them. I recognize the former NIA director, that's Yankuba Baji.
He was present?
He was there. He knows my brother, my senior brother, who was living in England. When he saw me, he said to me, "Are you a junior brother of Mr. X?" I said, "Yes." So he just kept quiet. But that time he was not the director of NIA. He was a junior intelligence officer. And many of them, of course. If I see them, I can recognize them.
Provide us with the names that you know and what the circumstances were, whether you interacted with them or not.
Yeah, Yankuba Baji, I interacted with him just like I explained. So Alaji Moore Job was persuading us to give a statement. So the other NIA officers are Mr. Haidara. He is fair in complexion. He was a very kind guy, but I don't know him much. But he never come to us and then, but he was into our issue. But
Do you know his first name?
Yes, I don't know his first name because it's a long time. But
Do you know what his role was at the time?
Exactly, I cannot recall his role.
Okay, please continue.
Yeah.
Who
So
else?
then we were taken to the Carnegie Magistrate Court for our first.
I was still asking you about the names of the individuals.
No, those are the names that I
Those
have.
are the names,
Yes.
okay. And I believe this is a convenient time to stop, and then we will continue after the break. Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Council, and thank you, Mrs. Saidy-Khan. We will take a 30-minute break and come back at 12 noon. Meeting is adjourned.